Everyone, everywhere, all the time, likes to think of themselves as highly rational. And this is total bullshit. We're all actually crazy schizophrenics who do things that are completely irrational all the time and have thoughts that are disconnected from reality. And this is true in the game, and it's also true in real life, but it's maybe a little more obvious actually with the way people live their real lives. For example, most people have no physical activity. They know that it's highly valuable for them. They truly believe that if they were to go to the gym and consistently elevate their heart rate, that their cardiovascular health would improve. Or that if they went and routinely lifted weights, that like they would for sure grow muscles. And they also know things such as smoking weed is at least bad for your lungs, although maybe some people think that it's not bad for your mind, and then just about nobody thinks that drinking alcohol is any good for you. These are things that tons of people do all the time, though. They would even describe it as a hobby, which is unfortunate. And then other ones could be poor sleep or making irreversible decisions while tired. That is such a huge one. Imagine knowing that you're at a reduced mental capacity and then trying to get into high stakes conversations with people either at work or in your personal life. And this is the kind of crazy stuff that people do all the time. And don't get me wrong, I'm retarded too. Absolutely a fucking moron. I just think I'm maybe slightly more self aware than average. But only slightly. It's not like I can really control myself either. In the game, you see this kind of stuff constantly too, though. It's just the IRL ones I think stick out a little better because nearly everybody has dozens of friends that smoke too much weed, or say smoke anything and drink literal fucking poison. But in the game, here's other examples. Maybe like 1 in 500 players that is good uses a sim to make decisions. Seriously, it's bananas how little people use Sims to make decisions. Or people will sim with the default settings and then try to talk about what they think that number means on monsters that aren't bosses or on fights that are shorter than what they simmed for. And this is like everybody. This is most of my friends, and sometimes it's even me. And among tank players, it gets even more bananas. I've actually never met somebody that uses a threat simulator in 6 years of playing. I've never ran into a single person that told me they use it. And I've met almost no one that simulates how tanky their character is. So they have no true idea how many hits to kill they have at any point in time. And the way that they use their cooldowns is that they randomly press them, or this is what I do. It's not like I'm super mega gamer and I'm tracking my hits to kill at all times. It's like you memorize certain areas where you're likely to die and you just pre-pop them. I actually think that's a pretty rational way to handle it, but it's not as good as simming things and knowing for certain. And then maybe on the more common end where people would think this is less crazy is the amount of healers that know how much MP5 they're getting from a mana pot versus their other mana sources. Like, dude, like nobody knows that, even though it's obviously super valuable to making decisions about your gearing, your consumes, all that stuff. And I could go on. These are just small examples of being illogical. And I just happen to love numbers, so I do use the sim, but I fuck up other stuff all the time. Like, I went for years being in guilds and running guilds where I disliked a lot of the people. I really, really should have associated with different people, and I didn't for years and years. And I made some great friends in those shitty fucking places, and I guess I wouldn't change anything because I'd be worried about the butterfly effect, but it was definitely a bad idea to spend so much of my time associating with people who didn't see eye to eye with me and who would be disrespectful to each other out of nowhere. There's so many toxic guilds and in-person and online communities all over the world. It's so easy to be toxic. People have very complex, stressful lives, and they just love shitting all over each other. Go to the Fight Club Discord if you ever want to see a whole bunch of fucking losers that are able to do good in the game and must have just absolutely hellacious real lives. Seriously, that Discord's filled with fucking morons. And I've fucked up other things in my life too besides associating with morons. When I was in college, I knew it was all about getting a job. I never for a moment had any illusions that learning how computer architecture would help my life. I knew I was never going to be designing CPUs. I'm not that smart. I'm not that motivated. I knew I can just skate through classes like electrical engineering ones. I wasn't going to be working on fucking power grids. Like, I'm going to be writing fucking code, sitting in an office, working on stupid fucking shit, trying to make a lot of money. And yet, when I got a job offer, I didn't instantaneously go for the win condition. It was, I couldn't accept the offer until I had a degree. And what I should have done, and I did this eventually, but I waited a year on it. I should have instantaneously dropped out of college and gotten a fake online degree, which is what eventually I ended up doing. But I would have had an extra year getting ahead in life if I would have done that immediately. But it's hard to think clearly because you're so influenced by the culture and the people around you. And that sounds insane. Like, you have a year and a half left until you get a real electrical engineering degree. What do you mean you want to drop out? And it's like, oh my God, I like left hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table by fucking staying in college and not working. Like, holy shit, that was an insane decision. And there's going to be so many people who make that same insane decision this year. Or another goofy thing that I should have done was waiting to get married. I was I was in the Navy when I was 18. And so, and I hated it. And I was really aware about how financial aid worked for colleges. And one of the things I realized was that if you're in the military a day, or if you're married, or you have a kid, or get emancipated, all these things, you can claim your own income. And I had a girlfriend, and we're married now. We've been together 15 years, but at the time we'd been together like 3 years. And I knew that logically, if we got married and we got divorced, it wouldn't really hurt either of us financially because we don't own fucking anything. We're children. But also that if we got married, she would get to go to college for free. Even though she was 18, she'd get to go to college for free because we'd have like basically no income registered. We'd have like the military income, which it's not fantastic. But we didn't. We delayed. We didn't get married until like 10 years later when we were like 27. So stupid. So much money left on the table just to basically go with the flow of what's considered normal in American culture, instead of thinking like, and I knew at the time, okay, we get married, she saves $100,000 on the low end on college, but honestly probably closer to 200 because she'll get a refundable Pell Grant and the school will give her need-based shit, and then we can get like 3% interest loans, which is basically free money because I was very interested in stocks even though I was 18. So it's like, okay, like that's, if I could take out loans for 3%, let's do that all day. And I didn't do it. Or this is one that's probably common with a lot more people, instead of it being specific to me, thinking about how strangers with no power over me would judge me for literally anything. That does relate to the getting married and the dropping out of school, and even with the whole being willing to be around people that you dislike or feeling forced to associate with them. This stuff is crazy though, but it's really, at least this one's really hard, I think, to get over. It's the notion of people having shame about actions they do, or trying to dissect why people would feel a certain way about them when those people don't matter to them. It's different. Maybe you should worry about how your friends or your intimate partner thinks about you, or family members. Like, that makes sense. But being concerned about how people that you don't know, that are unlikely to ever have any command over you, feel about you, it doesn't makes no sense at all. And then maybe another goofy thing is when I was working at Microsoft, not metagaming the corporate world harder. I was super aware, and this is the thing, anybody who's worked in corporate America, you should be fucking aware of this, like, instantaneously. You're going to start your job when, I don't know, maybe you're a fucking moron like me and it takes you like 6 years to get your fucking undergrad degree because you're a dumbass. And you're like 25 or 26, or maybe you like did it smart and you're like 22 or 23. And you're going to show up to an office, and you're going to be making some amount of money, and you're going to be working with coworkers who are like 10 or 15 years older than you, and they're going to be making like literally like 20 or 30% more money on the high end generally. If you're in a really high speed organization like a major tech firm, then maybe you're a junior and you make 200K a year, and there's like a senior making 500K a year. But that's not common. That's like fucking 1% of jobs are like that. In general, But even if it was that, it's like you have no experience. You're making half as much money as these people who have legitimate, massive responsibilities in the organization. And I I remember being like, wow, it really seems like it's honestly not fucking worth it at all to get promoted. Like, what the hell is there on the other side? You make all this money, the government takes fucking 40% of it. Like, what's the point? And I should have metagamed the corporate world harder. I should have sought to, instead of, I would say, grow my skill set, because I didn't really value what I was doing. I was working on testing Xbox manufacturing systems. Fun stuff. Yeah, like, man, one time we had a meeting because my manager saw a TikTok about people trying to vape out of the new Xboxes. Like, I don't even know what that means. I think they were just like exhaling the vape shit into like the intake fan and then like inhaling it out of the exhaust fan. And they're like, is this a business risk for us? And it's like, we don't even design the Xbox. We fucking plug cables into them and hit all the buttons and make sure it like renders shit correctly. We're having fucking meetings about this. And at the time, I thought, like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, why are people doing that? But really, what I should have done is I should have set up meetings like that. Oh, yeah, because that's memorable. Instead of actually doing engineering work, I should just fucking metagame the work thing. Like, fuck, people like things like foosball tournaments. They don't give a fuck if you actually make technology. It's not like you have to be so... If you want to stick out by being smart in a fucking engineering company, you have to be so fucking smart, it's bananas. Just give up on it. Do other stuff. It's easier. But that feels wrong. People say, no, you gotta like work hard and like grind, and that's like the way you get forward. Like, no, it's fucking not. Sometimes the world's just not fair. You gotta know what the fuck people want from you, even if it's absolutely fucking retarded. And stepping back from maybe the work stuff, a thing that I've messed up, and I think a lot of people mess this up, is being afraid to tell people how you really feel about them. Especially the people that you value, or at least I'm bad about this. Maybe I'm just projecting. I'm actually really good, though, about getting myself worked up, I should say, and freaking out at people that piss me off. Although that's not great usually, but some people maybe could use that skill. I'm not sure. But back to the more positive things, telling people that you like, what it is in particular you like about them. I've been trying really hard to do it lately, like the last few months, and I think it's made my life a lot better. It catches people so off guard. They like literally like freeze like deer in headlights quite often when they do it. I'll just give a couple examples. I have a friend who I describe as ruthless with their time, and they like tell me things that sound nuts sometimes, and I'll be like, I like how you tell me things that sound nuts, and I know that you're not going to do stuff unless you like think it's valuable to yourself. And like they actually don't freeze at things like that. But I have other friends where I'll tell them, you bring up a lot of interesting conversations in Discord, and I know sometimes you think that you're talking too much, but you're not, because if you were talking too much, people wouldn't just pile into the channel when you're talking. And I really appreciate what that does for the community. And that stuns this person. There's a few people I think this is actually the case with. Or there's a couple people who are parents that I play the game with. And I've had similar conversations with them about how it's very nice to hear them talk about how being a young father feels, because it makes it sound very encouraging to have kids. And it's very scary to have kids and have that extra level of responsibility. And it's very uncommon, I think, for men to talk about that stuff with each other. I guess that doesn't really stun those guys either. They're also damn happy to talk about their children, which I guess shouldn't surprise me. I used to talk to, when I ran salon and I did salon ads, I would talk to these women about their children all the time. But still, it feels really good to tell people that stuff. And then it's very interesting to see how they respond, especially because they're like off guard and they like it. They're a little stunned, so sometimes they say goofy stuff, which is enjoyable. But it's hard. It's so hard to control yourself and to think about why you should or shouldn't do some behaviors. And people will most people I think are a bad influence. Nowadays, I only hang out with people who I think are either a neutral influence but are very fun to be around, or they're a great influence or at least a slightly positive influence. I don't even think too many people are like a neutral influence and just fun to be around. They're like almost everybody that I associate with now would not encourage me to do something that was obviously stupid. But most people, they'll be scared to tell you things you won't like or bad news. This would be an example. Everybody who has played the game for a while and is looking for a guild, generally, like they've been playing the game consistently for a while and they're now looking for a guild, something happened that was bad. It's pretty much like a rule. Like something happened that was bad. It's very rare that people looking for new guilds, they just like got a new schedule in the real world and so they had to stop raiding with their other guild. Like usually they made a decision or somebody else made a decision and now they're out of a guild or their guild fell apart, you know? And people will be worried to tell you something about that if you're meeting them early on, I would say, because it can reflect poorly on them, even though it might help explain what they need from you. Or perhaps a less game specific example is it's very difficult for people to give good contextually relevant advice. Most of the time, you're only going to get prescriptions from other people. And sometimes prescriptions work. For example, if anybody watching this and there's a lot of people like this, you're a computer science student or you're an engineering student and you want to make as much money as possible and you don't hate the idea of being on the computer 12 hours a day for the next like 4 or 5 years of your life. I don't know, maybe you're like 20 years old. You're like, I want to be a millionaire when I'm 30. What do I do? Okay, you go on LeetCode.com and you study those fucking math problems like 2 hours a day for years. And on the other side, you will be successful. That's a prescription. It works. I did that. Anyone can do it, kinda, if you can stand being on the computer all the time and you like programming. But bad prescription advice it's stuff like this. Sometimes people hit me up in Discord and they're not really looking to join my guild, but they like are interested in talking about their guild and like getting in a call. And I love talking about guilds and people problems and then hearing back from people about what worked and what didn't. And so we'll hop in a Discord call and someone might say something like this. I have a guy I really dislike in my guild and the roster boss is kind of an issue. If I kick him, instead of us having maybe 24, 25 people on average, it'll be 23, 24 people on average, something like that. I should just kick him, right? And usually I think the answer to that is yes, but it really depends. But it feels there's this great temptation to answer people's questions instantly and have this surety in your voice and seem like you really like have command of a situation. It feels right, and other people like it too. And so you're going to be tempted to do that with your friends or just with other parties that you're trying to accomplish something with, and it's not actually productive. It's like fake productivity, and you need to get deeper. Like in the case of talking to people about their guilds, I think a lot of them, they're wondering, people talk to me and I think they want somebody else to tell them, you're right, this person is a fucking asshole and you've been putting your too much of yourself into the game and trying to make other people happy. Yeah, you should remove them. That's kind of what they're after from me, and I love giving that to people, but I want to make sure that that's like actually the right move. And so then, you have to ask things. You have to be like, well, is this person essential to your raid success? Do they have friends? Are they well liked by other people? Is it possible that they bug you and it's your fault? And if it is, are you comfortable letting them bug you, maybe for a while? Or how are you going to fix this? But that kind of shit feels really wrong, I think, to get in the weeds of people, and it can feel like an invasion of privacy to try that. But in general, when I do that lately, and I've only been doing it like for a little while, everybody loves it. And then back to real life stuff, but this is in game too. It's really cool to encourage people to do self-destructive behavior. Oh yeah, just spend your money on that thing that's stupid. You earned it. Oh, come on, hit the bong again. No, or have another shot. What the fuck ever happened that was good from having another shot? Do you remember any nights you went out partying and you're like, man, if only I drank a little more? Maybe if you were going to be the dedicated driver and you just drank right at the start and then you gave yourself like 7 hours to sober up and maybe like, fuck, I could have had a few more drinks. Like that can make sense. But usually not. It's not like you're 8 beers deep. Fucking, if you don't have the ninth beer, you're going to have just as much fun, but you're going to really reduce the probability of being fucking upset about your decisions tomorrow. But it's so cool to be carefree and encourage the people around you to do shit that is stupid. Oh man. And this shit applies in World of Warcraft too. Hell, maybe even especially. There are sloppy, drunk raid leaders and guild masters, and they're making decisions about how 40 people are going to use their time, or they're making impressions on massive amounts of people about what the culture of their organization is and what they are about as a person, and they're doing it while they're way too fucking high. They're doing it while they're falling over drunk. It is absolutely ridiculous. There is nothing cool about it at all. People think it's like, this is kind of funny. If your raid leader's super drunk and fucking freaks out and like nobody feels personally assaulted, like, yes, that can be funny. Raid leaders are kind of putting on a show quite often for their raid. I don't think that necessarily the raiders are asking for it, but I think people like feeling self-important, and so they talk way too much. I talk too much in my raids as well, unless I'm super upset, and then I'm fucking quiet. But it's bad. It's bad to get super fucked up in front of people and talk about things that matter. It's not a good idea. And maybe on a lower level of this, raiders will show up to raids or to dungeons with their friends where if things don't go right, people might be upset. Like, if you've ever been in a 5-man, you're trying to farm some dungeon, and a couple things go wrong and people are getting a little fucking mad in Discord. If there's a chance of that kind of stuff happening, it is so foolish to be fucked up. It's absolutely not worth it at all. You being drunk isn't going to feel worth it when people are upset with each other. All right? Like, what are you doing? But at least in this case, you're kind of hurting yourself mostly. It depends on how big of a negative impact you have from being fucked up. And then this is all the time. I'm really careful not to let this happen in my guild. People fucking rationalizing being late to bed so they can play World of Warcraft and hang out in Discord. It is so goddamn important that you sleep 8-9 hours a night every single night. It makes you such a better person. You'll be so much happier. You'll be so much more productive. Your health in every single way will do so much better. But it's so tempting to stay up late, because when you're 2 hours past your bedtime, you are basically slightly drunk when it comes to making decisions, and you feel more open, and other people are more open too, and then you get to take advantage of that and have a good time. The real solution is just getting better at being open and uninhibited when you're not fucking exhausted, and then you go to bed on time. But it's so, people be like, oh, like one more of this, oh, let's go do this dungeon. No, that's for fucking idiots. Okay, it's for fucking idiots. Go to bed at the same time every day of the week. It's logical. It makes sense. Your doctor tells you to do it. People don't do it ever. And then here's another thing. This is where people talk about the people taking the game too seriously being losers, pushing off real life business for in-game business. Oh God, I have rescheduled so many sales calls when I did ads for salons so that I could talk to someone about World of Warcraft. I probably do that again. At the time, I would say that the ads business was more important to me than the game, but I was just fooling myself. The game was much more important to me than the ads business, which is why I don't do that anymore. I only have one client, and she's not a fucking idiot and is very easy to work with, and I don't work with anybody else anymore. But I've seen so many people do this. They'll have a job where they can easily turn, and this is rare. This is so rare. But some people, they run a business or they have a job where they can convert any amount of their free time they want into money whenever they want. It would have to be very production focused. Maybe you're a welder and you could get extra shifts, or you literally run your own business and your business is maybe heavy on sales and you can take actions to get more sales calls. Those are the two that I've ran into the most. And then instead I'm talking about a couple people in particular, so if you're guild, you're gonna fucking know. Motherfuckers, you guys in sales who like selling Hodges and BRD, what are you doing? You guys are so fucking talented. You're selling these fucking Hodge runs in BRD. Knock it off. Come on. But I think it's really hard to think clearly and act productively all the time. Right now, I'm focused on doing a great job in just a few places because I'd like to tell myself it's impossible to do it everywhere. Well, that's bullshit. I bet billionaires are good at like using their time correctly just about all the time. But I'm not going to be that successful. I'm just going to be like a little ant and make fucking YouTube videos. Anyways, I'm going to meet as many of my guildies in person as possible this year. I think I can reasonably see 20 of them, but at least 10 for sure. That should be trivial. And I want to do that because I think that it's easier to hang out with somebody in Discord, maybe, let's say, 30 hours, and then you see them in person, and that's probably better than hanging out with them in Discord for, I don't know, 200 hours when it comes to making a real connection and building enough trust and knowledge about each other to have a high chance of knowing each other forever. And I want to do things that compound with my time. I don't any longer want it to be that I go and I make these silly, weak connections with fake online friends and know them for a year and never talk to them again. That's basically what you're forced into doing when you play World of Warcraft. You have to have fucking 40 people in a raid group. And that's, in my opinion, it's like a minor waste of time. I think that's actually not a very popular opinion. I think I'll be like, yeah, it's not a waste of time to like get to know people and then stop knowing them. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a waste of time. I like spending my time with people I know super well and that I can talk to about just about anything. And another thing, and this is more agreeable than maybe that crazy take, is I don't want to hang out with anyone that I on average dislike ever again, or that I even dislike maybe when they're at their bottom 10% of moments. I'm only going to play with people and associate people in the real world that I am crazy about. And I've been able to do this for the last few months. And sometimes people have bad moments and they fucking upset me, but it's been like 3 times and all a classic so far. Just a couple people, and they're super amazing 99% of the time, so they're absolutely worth associating with. But nobody that fucking pisses me off on average, or that has a lot of, their bottom 10% of moments is fucking shit. Like, I mean, I'd say my bottom 10% moments of people, I'm not very attentive to them and I seem disinterested probably, and that's not great. But I'm not like actively trying to hurt them or something, or like raging out on people. So I think that's like acceptable. Maybe that's an example of, if that makes any sense, example of you're not being your best to the people around you, but it's not all that bad, even though it's definitely not good. And beyond that, I want to focus on my health. I'm already pretty healthy overall, but I could be better. And, so I need to consistently go to the gym more instead of finding fantastic excuses to skip lifting this week or to not run this week. And maybe a more interesting reason why I think the health could be super important is, maybe medicine's going to cure aging before those of us who are like in our 30s and 40s die. And that probably sounds insane. But if that was the case, if you knew aging was going to get cured at some point in time, wouldn't it make so much more sense to try to live a little longer? And maybe you can get to that. I hope that sounds absolutely fucking bananas to most of you, because it really amuses me when I sound crazy. But I am serious. So I guess I have one question for you. Are you focused on anything? And what are the few things you're going to try to do really correctly? Hopefully you can figure that out. I definitely don't have it all figured out.